for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding.
We have just learned some breaking news from Kensington Palace in London that she has been diagnosed with cancer and is undergoing chemotherapy.
I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, found cancer had been present.
Pope Francis and Kate Middleton shared a moment so profound it sent shockwaves through religious communities and beyond. This was not merely a meeting of public figures, it was a collision of faith, resilience, and raw human emotion that left the world in awe. Tune in to witness a moment that redefined faith, challenged traditions, and shook the world to its core. Cancer, faith, and strength. Kate finally addressed the rumors, revealing in a heartfelt statement that she had been battling cancer. Diagnosed after a routine surgery, she had undergone chemotherapy, a reality far removed from the glamorous royal life we're used to seeing. Her candidness was shocking but also deeply humanizing. She wasn't just a royal anymore, she was a person facing one of life's toughest challenges. And she wasn't doing it alone. Prince William and her children had been her rock, and her faith played a huge role in helping her navigate this difficult time. But just as the world began to rally behind her, Kate paused, her voice trembling as she hinted at a secret she wasn't ready to share. The meeting itself, pure cinematic gold. Picture this. Sitting quietly in the church, lost in thought when Pope Francis appears, his simple white robe catching the light. They light a candle together, a symbol of hope, and then retreat to a private room for a heart-to-heart. The Pope listened as she poured out her fears, her struggles with vulnerability, and the pressure of always being seen as strong and perfect. His response? A gentle reminder that true strength isn't about being unshakable, it's about facing life's challenges head-on. Then, in a scene straight out of a novel, the Pope led her to a hidden garden. Among blooming flowers and the soft sound of a fountain, he shared an analogy about water shaping stone, emphasizing resilience and the power of persistence. He anointed her with holy water, a moment that reportedly brought her a profound sense of peace. Before she left, he gave her a simple wooden rosary, a token of faith and hope to carry with her on her journey. Pope Francis is no stranger to controversy. From his views on same-gender blessings to his criticism of capitalism, he's a pope who doesn't shy away from shaking things up. He's been accused of bending Catholic doctrine to fit modern values, and his critics aren't quiet about it. But here's the thing, Francis isn't trying to rewrite the rules. He's trying to remind people what the core of Christianity is supposed to be: love, compassion, and forgiveness. Take his stance on hell, for example. In one interview, he's quoted as saying that souls who truly repent are forgiven, while those who don't just cease to exist. This sparked outrage, with traditionalists accusing him of downplaying eternal damnation. The Vatican's back and forth on whether he actually said this didn't help. Then there's his push for inclusivity, like allowing priests to bless same-gender unions, a move that's left conservatives fuming. For Francis, these aren't contradictions. They're a reflection of his belief that the church should prioritize understanding over judgment. And it's not just social issues. Pope Francis has taken bold stances on climate change, income inequality, and even the death penalty, which he's declared unacceptable under any circumstances. These positions have made him a polarizing figure. Some hail him as a revolutionary leader bringing the church into the 21st century. Others see him as a threat to its traditions. What does this mean for his meeting with her? On the surface, it might seem like an odd pairing. But dig a little deeper, and it's clear this wasn't just a meeting of two influential figures. It was a moment where faith and humanity intersected in a deeply personal way. For her, it was a chance to find spiritual solace during one of the most challenging times of her life. For Francis, it was an opportunity to extend his message of compassion and hope to someone who needed it most. Since that meeting, she has returned to her royal duties with a renewed sense of purpose. Her public appearances, like hosting the Together at Christmas Carol service, have been imbued with a deeper focus on community and compassion. She's using her platform to raise awareness about cancer and the importance of early detection, turning her personal battle into a source of inspiration for others. Meanwhile, Pope Francis continues to challenge the status quo, urging the Church to adapt to the needs of a changing world. Whether you see him as a modernizer or a maverick, one thing is clear. He's redefining what it means to be a spiritual leader in the modern age. Consider her journey since that transformative meeting. Her resilience has become a source of inspiration, not just for those battling illness, but for anyone facing adversity. From her candid openness about her cancer treatment to her efforts in promoting awareness about early detection, she shifted from a symbol of royal perfection to a relatable figure of strength and perseverance. Her decision to lean on her faith during such a vulnerable time resonates deeply with many. In a world where public figures often keep personal struggles hidden, her willingness to be vulnerable adds a layer of humanity to her public persona. She's no longer just the Princess of Wales. She's a woman who's faced life's curveballs with grace and determination. As for Pope Francis, his actions continue to reflect his commitment to bridging divides and fostering understanding. Whether it's addressing climate change, advocating for social justice, or challenging traditional views within the Church, he's a leader who prioritizes compassion over convention. His meeting with her serves as a powerful example of his approach to leadership, meeting people where they are and offering solace in times of need. The interplay between their stories highlights a universal truth. Strength comes from connection. Whether it's the quiet strength found in a hidden garden or the courage to share one's struggles with the world, these moments of vulnerability and resilience remind us of the power of empathy and understanding. Kate's journey took her to someone changing the world in surprising ways. Compassion and resilience in action. While the specifics of their meeting remain largely private, its impact is undeniable. It's a reminder that faith in its many forms can be a source of comfort and guidance. Whether it's the Catholic traditions embodied by Pope Francis or the Anglican faith that she holds dear, the core message is the same: compassion, hope, and a belief in something greater than ourselves. Her and Pope Francis's unexpected connection underscores the idea that even in the most unlikely circumstances, we can find common ground. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the ways in which faith and compassion can bring us together, no matter our differences. Their meeting has left a lasting impression, not just on them, but on those who have followed their journeys. It's a story of courage, kindness, and the enduring power of hope. And in a world often divided by differences, it's a powerful reminder of what can happen when we choose to connect and support one another. Life is messy and unpredictable, but it's in these moments of uncertainty that we often find our greatest strengths. Whether it's a princess battling cancer or a pope redefining spiritual leadership, their stories remind us of the importance of resilience, faith, and the connections that sustain us. But their meeting didn't just stay in the realm of spiritual reflection. It had a ripple effect on how people viewed leadership and the blending of modern and traditional values. In a world increasingly skeptical of institutions, the sincerity of both her and Pope Francis during this moment sent a strong message. This wasn't just about public figures fulfilling obligations, it was about two individuals sharing their humanity in a way that resonated universally. Her openness about her struggles has inspired countless people to confront their own challenges with courage. By publicly addressing her illness, she dismantled the image of untouchable royalty and replaced it with something far more meaningful: authenticity. She used her platform to highlight the importance of early cancer detection and the critical need for emotional and spiritual support. Her story has sparked conversations in households far beyond the UK, as people relate to the vulnerability she's displayed. Similarly, Pope Francis's focus on inclusivity and compassion has marked a turning point for the Catholic Church. He has challenged age-old traditions not to dilute faith, but to make it accessible and relevant in a rapidly changing world. His meeting with her underscores his belief in meeting people where they are, irrespective of their background or circumstances. It's a radical approach, but one that has found resonance among people seeking a spiritual anchor without judgment. Their shared narrative is one of breaking barriers and redefining expectations. Whether it's the physical and emotional strength needed to battle cancer or the moral courage to challenge institutional norms, their stories intersect at a powerful point: the human capacity for resilience and transformation. These themes echo far beyond the walls of the church where they met, reaching people who may never have considered the connections between faith, compassion, and leadership. What makes their meeting so impactful is the way it highlights the universality of struggle and the importance of hope. It serves as a reminder that, regardless of status or position, we all face challenges that test our strength and faith. And sometimes the most unexpected alliances can provide the support we need to carry on. The ripple effects of their encounter are still being felt, not just in the circles they directly influence, but in the broader cultural conversation about vulnerability and leadership. Their story is a testament to the transformative power of empathy and the strength that comes from shared humanity. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, their meeting offers something everyone can take to heart: the enduring power of connection, compassion, and faith in the face of life's uncertainties. When these two came together, it wasn't just a casual meet and greet. It was like two worlds colliding: faith and modernity, tradition and progress. People eat that kind of thing up. This meeting wasn't about small talk. It was about sending a message, loud and clear. Even the oldest, most traditional institutions can find common ground in today's messy, complicated world. While the Vatican and Kensington Palace didn't spill all the tea, it's pretty safe to assume that the conversation touched on some big-ticket issues. Think about it. Pope Francis has been hammering home the importance of addressing climate change, inequality, and the plight of migrants. Meanwhile, she's been out there championing mental health and early childhood education. These aren't just feel-good causes, they're real, gritty issues that need attention. And that's what made this meeting so significant. It wasn't just a photo op, it was a statement. But let's not sugarcoat it. This kind of meeting doesn't happen without a fair share of critics. There are always going to be people who say it's all for show, that nothing real ever comes out of these high-profile encounters. And sure, the skeptics might have a point. It's easy to slap a few photos on the front page and call it progress. But here's the thing, sometimes symbolism matters. Sometimes seeing two people from widely different worlds come together can spark conversations and inspire action. And honestly, in a world that feels more divided than ever, that's no small thing. Their meeting was over, but what happened next would inspire many. Kate and Pope Francis show a new way to lead. Another layer to this meeting is the idea of leadership. Pope Francis and the Duchess aren't just figureheads, they're leaders in their own right. And what makes their leadership stand out is the way they've embraced empathy and inclusivity. Pope Francis is all about meeting people where they are, whether it's washing the feet of prisoners or reaching out to marginalized communities. She, on the other hand, has used her platform to connect with everyday people, whether she's talking to parents about the struggles of raising kids or championing mental health resources. They're showing that leadership isn't about power or authority, it's about service and connection. This meeting didn't happen in a vacuum. The world's grappling with a laundry list of crises: climate change, political instability, economic inequality, you name it. It's a mess out there. And while no one's saying that Pope Francis and the Duchess can solve all these problems with one meeting, their coming together sends a powerful message. Collaboration matters. Whether it's between nations, religions, or individuals, finding common ground is the only way forward. Of course, the critics are quick to point out the limitations. Can a pope and a duchess really make a dent in issues as massive as climate change or social inequality? Probably not on their own, but that's not the point. The point is that they're setting an example. They're showing that even institutions steeped in tradition can evolve, can listen, and can work together for the greater good. This meeting wasn't just about Pope Francis and the Duchess, it was about what they represent. For Pope Francis, it's the idea that faith isn't about dogma or rules, it's about love, compassion, and action. For the Duchess, it's the idea that tradition doesn't have to mean being stuck in the past. It can be a bridge to the future. Together, they're showing that the old and the new can coexist and even thrive together. The meeting between Pope Francis and the Duchess is a reminder that the challenges we face, as individuals, as communities, and as a planet, are too big for any one person or institution to tackle alone. It's going to take all of us, working together, respecting each other's differences, and finding common ground. Maybe that sounds a little idealistic, but if a pope and a duchess can do it, why can't the rest of us? Religious institutions and monarchies often face criticism for being detached from the realities of everyday people. The Catholic Church has been battling scandals and dwindling attendance, while the British monarchy's relevance has been questioned in modern democracies. Yet here we see two representatives of these institutions addressing issues that resonate universally. Climate change, mental health, and the well-being of children transcend faith, borders, and political leanings. These are human problems that demand human solutions, and meetings like this are a nudge in the right direction. Think about the optics of it all. Pope Francis, who's redefined what it means to be a pope, has shown he's not afraid to step outside the Vatican's traditional mold. He's met with leaders from various faiths, embraced science, and encouraged Catholics to look beyond rituals and focus on acts of love and service. Meanwhile, she, poised and modern, has reimagined the role of a royal consort. Instead of just cutting ribbons, she's rolled up her sleeves, delving into societal issues like the impact of trauma in early childhood and breaking the stigma around mental health. When these two met, it wasn't just a casual exchange, it was a union of two transformative forces. This meeting also speaks to the changing role of leadership in a fractured world. Traditional power structures are being challenged, and leaders must navigate a delicate balance between honoring their heritage and responding to modern needs. Pope Francis's leadership is marked by his humility and focus on marginalized voices. He's shown a willingness to apologize for the Church's past mistakes, whether it's addressing intimate misconduct scandals or the Church's role in colonial histories. Similarly, her work reflects a deep understanding of the modern public's expectations of their leaders. She's relatable yet regal, proving that compassion and strength aren't mutually exclusive. The partnership hinted at by this meeting offers a model for collaboration. We're often caught up in binary thinking, faith versus science, tradition versus progress, old versus new. But what Pope Francis and she demonstrated is that we don't have to choose. The world's biggest challenges demand that we bring together different perspectives. By showing up for this meeting, they encouraged a dialogue that crosses boundaries and inspires others to do the same. Another fascinating layer here is the public reaction. Social media lit up with commentary, some praising the historic nature of the encounter, while others dismissed it as symbolic fluff. But dismissing it entirely misses the point. Symbols matter, especially in an age dominated by short attention spans and divisive rhetoric. The image of these two sitting together, smiling and engaged in discussion, sends a powerful message. It tells us that even in a polarized world, there are moments of unity that remind us of our shared humanity. There's also an underlying message here about the power of visibility. In a media-saturated world, what we see can influence what we believe. By coming together, Pope Francis and she reinforce the idea that different traditions, when approached with mutual respect, can complement rather than clash. This isn't just an idealistic dream, it's a necessity if we're going to tackle issues that affect us all. After all, two people in a room, no matter how influential, can't solve global crises overnight. But that's not the point. The point is to inspire, to set an example, and to encourage others to think bigger. Pope Francis and she didn't just represent themselves in this meeting, they represented possibilities.
The unexpected tension that shook the Vatican. The drama unfolded on New Year's Eve in St. Peter's Square, where Pope Francis was greeting a large crowd. He moved along the line of people, smiling and shaking hands. Everything seemed normal until a woman grabbed his hand suddenly, yanking him toward her. The Pope's face flashed with frustration and discomfort, and in a quick move, he slapped her hand away to free himself. That brief interaction was all it took to ignite a firestorm online. Before we delve into this, it's clear that this moment was far more complicated than it appeared, and what lies beneath the surface will leave you even more stunned. The woman's actions were undeniably intrusive. She seemed desperate to connect with the Pope, but her approach was far from respectful. It wasn't just a gentle touch. It was a forceful grab, crossing the line from admiration to aggression. Whether she meant any harm or not, her behavior was startling. And yet, the Pope's response, a slap, was equally surprising, given his role as a global spiritual leader. What's important to remember here is that both the woman and the Pope acted on instinct. Her sudden grab was likely fueled by excitement, while his reaction was a reflexive move to protect himself. The slap wasn't an act of anger, but a split-second decision. driven by shock and discomfort. Still, it's hard to ignore the way this moment clashed with the Pope's usual image of calm and understanding. When the footage hit social media, the reactions were explosive. Some people were furious, saying the Pope's reaction was out of line and didn't align with the values he preaches. To them, this moment was proof that even he could fail to live up to the high standards of his role. Others, however, defended him, pointing out that anyone, even a pope, has the right to personal space and safety. They argued that his reaction was human and understandable, especially given the situation. The debates quickly spiraled into a social media frenzy. Hashtags like #PopeSlap and #HumanPope took over platforms, with memes, hot takes, and long threads dissecting every second of the clip. People couldn't seem to agree. Was this a lapse in judgment or just a rare glimpse of the Pope's humanity? In the days that followed, Pope Francis addressed the incident. He stood before the public and admitted his actions were wrong. He called it a moment of lost patience, acknowledging that his reaction didn't reflect the values he strives to embody. It was a rare moment of accountability from someone in such a high position, and it set an example of humility and self-awareness. The Vatican's official stance echoed the Pope's apology, framing the incident as an isolated moment that didn't define his leadership. They emphasized his willingness to admit fault and his dedication to leading with compassion, even when he falls short. This transparency helped diffuse some of the criticism, but the incident remained a talking point worldwide. What's fascinating is how this moment reshaped the conversation about leadership and humanity. The Pope, often seen as a near-perfect figure, showed a side of himself that was raw and imperfect. For many, this made him more relatable. Leaders are often placed on impossible pedestals, expected to never falter. But here was the Pope, admitting he'd made a mistake, reminding everyone that no one is immune to human emotions. The incident also sparked discussions about public boundaries. The woman's actions, while likely unintentional in their harm, highlighted how easily admiration can become invasive. On the flip side, the Pope's reaction underscored the importance of respecting personal space, even for someone as public and revered as him. It was a two-sided lesson in the dynamics of interaction between leaders and the people who admire them. For Pope Francis, this wasn't just a moment of weakness, it was an opportunity for reflection and growth. By addressing his mistake openly, he turned a controversial incident into a teaching moment. He demonstrated the power of owning up to one's actions and seeking forgiveness, no matter how high one's position might be. In doing so, he reinforced some of the core principles of the Catholic faith: humility, accountability, and forgiveness. But what does this mean for the rest of us? It's a reminder that leaders, no matter how influential, are human. They make mistakes, just like everyone else. The real test isn't whether they slip up, but how they respond when they do. In this case, Pope Francis chose to face the criticism head-on, showing that even a single moment of failure can be turned into a lesson. For those who admire Pope Francis, this incident was a chance to see him in a new light. His apology reaffirmed his commitment to the values he preaches, even as it highlighted his human imperfections. It was a moment that brought both criticism and understanding, forcing people to confront their expectations of what leadership should look like. In the end, the slap wasn't just a physical act. It was a symbol of the complex realities of being in the public eye. It showed how quickly things can escalate, how human instinct can override careful thought, and how even a revered figure can face backlash for a momentary lapse. But it also showed the power of humility and the importance of accountability, leaving a lasting impression on those who witnessed it. As time moves on, this incident will likely become a small footnote in the history of Pope Francis's papacy, but the conversations it sparked about humanity, leadership, and forgiveness will linger. It's a story that reminds us of the weight of expectations placed on leaders and the grace it takes to navigate them, flaws and all. After this surprising moment, let's look back at the early life of the man who would one day lead the Church. From Buenos Aires to the Vatican, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, better known to the world today as Pope Francis, had an intriguing and humble beginning. Born on December 17, 1936, in the sprawling city of Buenos Aires, Argentina, his life was a mix of simple upbringing and defining challenges. As the eldest of 5 siblings in a family of Italian immigrants, young Jorge grew up in a tight-knit home. His father, Mario José Bergoglio, worked as an accountant for the railways, while his mother, Regina Maria Sivori, dedicated her days to raising the family. Life was far from luxurious, but the Bergoglio household was full of resilience and strong values. Growing up in the working-class neighborhood of Flores, Jorge attended a technical school known as Escuela Técnica Industrial No. 27 Hipólito Yrigoyen. Here, he earned a diploma as a chemical technician. It was clear he had a knack for learning and a strong work ethic, but life soon took an unexpected turn. After completing his studies, Jorge worked in a food laboratory, gaining hands-on experience in chemistry. For a while, it seemed his future lay in science. However, a serious health crisis changed everything. At the age of 21, Jorge developed severe pneumonia and 3 cysts. This illness led to a major surgery where a portion of his right lung was removed, a procedure that left a permanent mark on his health. This health scare, while daunting, also became a turning point. Despite his budding career in chemistry, Jorge felt a deep and growing pull toward the priesthood. In 1958, he made a life-changing decision to join the Society of Jesus as a novice. The Jesuits, known for their intellectual rigor and focus on service, became the perfect fit for his aspirations. Jorge's formation as a Jesuit began with studies in humanities in Santiago, Chile. On March 12, 1960, he officially committed to the Jesuit way, taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Jorge's thirst for knowledge didn't stop there. In 1960, he earned a licentiate in philosophy from the Colegio Máximo de San Jose in San Miguel, a province of Buenos Aires. Philosophy was just the beginning. Over the next several years, Jorge shared his knowledge as a teacher of literature and psychology. From 1964 to 1965, he taught at the Colegio de la Inmaculada Concepción in Santa Fe, and later at Colegio del Salvador in Buenos Aires. His ability to connect with students and convey complex ideas with ease made him a respected educator. But teaching wasn't his only pursuit. Jorge continued his theological studies at the Colegio Máximo de San Jose, earning a degree in 1970. A year earlier, in 1969, he was ordained as a priest by Archbishop Ramón José Castellano. This marked the start of a new chapter in his life. Following his ordination, his Jesuit superiors sent him to Spain for further spiritual training. He underwent a tertianship, a final period of Jesuit formation, in Alcalá de Henares. This experience deepened his faith and prepared him for leadership roles within the church. When Jorge returned to Argentina, he took on significant responsibilities. He served as the novice master at Villa Barilari in San Miguel, guiding young Jesuits in their early stages of formation. He also became a professor at the Faculty of Theology, sharing his insights and helping shape the next generation of clergy. By 1973, at just 36 years old, Jorge was appointed Provincial Superior of the Society of Jesus in Argentina. This role placed him at the helm of the Jesuits during a turbulent time in Argentina's history. The country was under a brutal military dictatorship, and the church faced intense scrutiny and challenges. Jorge's leadership during these years was marked by efforts to protect both clergy and lay people from the regime's oppressive tactics. After his term as provincial superior ended, Jorge continued his work in academia and ministry. He served as the rector of the Colegio Máximo de San Jose, the very institution where he had once been a student. Beyond his academic contributions, he remained deeply involved in parish ministry in San Miguel, connecting with communities and offering guidance. Jorge's path within the church hierarchy didn't stop there. In 1992, Pope John Paul II appointed him Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires, giving him the titular see of Auca. His consecration as a bishop took place on June 27, 1992. This new role expanded his responsibilities and influence within the church. By 1998, Jorge had risen to the position of Archbishop of Buenos Aires, succeeding Cardinal Antonio Quaracino. As Archbishop, Jorge's leadership style stood out. He chose a humble and simple lifestyle, opting to live in a modest apartment rather than the grand Archbishop's palace. Known for his commitment to social justice, he often used public transportation and was deeply engaged in addressing the needs of the poor. In 2001, Pope John Paul II elevated Jorge to the College of Cardinals, assigning him the title of Cardinal Priest of San Roberto Bellarmino. As a cardinal, he became a prominent voice within the church. advocating for pastoral care and emphasizing the importance of humility and service. Jorge's background as a chemist, teacher, and Jesuit priest brought a unique perspective to his leadership. His focus on social justice, simplicity, and dedication to the marginalized became defining traits. Throughout his early years, Jorge Mario Bergoglio's life was shaped by a series of pivotal moments, from his humble beginnings in Buenos Aires to his rise within the church. Each experience, whether in the laboratory, the classroom, or the Jesuit order, contributed to the values and vision he carried into his role as Pope Francis. His early choices and challenges laid the foundation for a papacy that would prioritize humility, service, and care for the most vulnerable. From a simple start to leading the church, his first days as Pope showed how he planned to bring change and challenge old ways. A leader's bold steps for change. The current Pope has undoubtedly made waves during his time as the leader of the Catholic Church. From the very beginning, he showed the world he was not about the pomp and luxury typically associated with the papacy. Instead of moving into the Grand Apostolic Palace, he opted for a simpler setup at Casa Santa Marta. This wasn't just a choice of location, but a statement signaling his commitment to humility and staying connected to ordinary people. It's fair to say this was a refreshing shift for many who saw the church as out of touch. One of the most impactful moments early in his papacy came in 2013 when he released Evangelii Gaudium, or The Joy of the Gospel. This wasn't your typical dry religious document. He went straight for the issues plaguing society, challenging systems that let inequality thrive and urging the church to step up for the poor and marginalized. He wasn't shy about critiquing unchecked capitalism and calling for a redistribution of wealth. It was a bold move and one that made some people uncomfortable, especially those in powerful economic circles. Environmental activism is another area where he has left a lasting impression. His 2015 encyclical, Laudato Si, tackled the climate crisis head-on, urging everyone to protect what he called our common home. He didn't hold back, drawing connections between environmental destruction and social issues like poverty. This was more than a religious appeal. It was a wake-up call for the world. Critics might say he was overstepping, but his words resonated with countless people who saw the church aligning with urgent global concerns. When it comes to building bridges between faiths, he has taken unprecedented steps. In 2019, he became the first pope to visit the Arabian Peninsula, a region where interfaith dialogue isn't exactly commonplace. There, he and Ahmed El-Tayeb, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, signed the document on human fraternity, advocating for peace and understanding between religions. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a statement that cooperation is possible even in a world rife with division. Social justice has always been at the core of his work. In 2016, he visited a refugee camp in Lesbos, Greece, shedding light on the humanitarian crisis many would rather ignore. His actions didn't stop at words. He facilitated the relocation of refugee families to Italy, demonstrating that the church's role goes beyond preaching. While some hailed him as a champion for the displaced, others criticized him for getting involved in politically charged issues. The Pope hasn't shied away from addressing the church's own demons either. The clerical scandals have rocked Catholic communities worldwide, and he has confronted them directly. In 2019, he convened a summit focused on the protection of minors, a clear signal that he intended to address the problem head-on. Critics argue his efforts haven't gone far enough, but it's undeniable that he's made strides in holding abusers accountable and supporting survivors. His approach to LGBTQ+ individuals has also stirred debate. While he hasn't changed church doctrine, his message has been one of inclusion and respect. His famous "Who am I to judge?" remark captured his tone perfectly, offering a more compassionate view that many found refreshing. However, this openness has also drawn backlash from traditionalists within the church, showing just how polarizing his leadership can be. Synodality is another hallmark of his leadership. Instead of making decisions from the top down, he has emphasized a more participatory church. He's encouraged the laity and clergy alike to have a voice in the direction of the church. This approach hasn't been without its critics, who worry about potential divisions, but it reflects his belief in a church that listens as much as it speaks. On the global stage, he has proven himself a skilled diplomat. His role in easing tensions between the United States and Cuba is a prime example. By offering the Vatican as neutral ground for negotiations, he helped foster dialogue between two nations long at odds. It's moments like these that underline the unique influence the papacy can wield in global affairs. With each step as a leader, his travels and actions showed his care for people who are often ignored or left behind. Acts of mercy in a divided world. The Pope's travels often highlight his commitment to marginalized communities. In 2015, he visited the Central African Republic, a country ravaged by conflict. Opening a holy door in Bangui, he symbolically launched the Jubilee Year of Mercy from a place desperately in need of healing. This wasn't just a religious act, it was a message of solidarity with those caught in the crossfire of war. Pope Francis has made mercy and compassion central themes of his teachings. Declaring an extraordinary Jubilee Year of Mercy, he called on Catholics to practice forgiveness and engage in works of kindness. This wasn't just about individual acts, but about reshaping the Church's image as a beacon of hope and love. While some saw it as a much-needed renewal, others felt it was too idealistic. Economic inequality is another issue the Pope frequently addresses. He's criticized what he calls the economy of exclusion and the idolatry of money, urging systems that prioritize people over profits. Aligning himself with St. Francis of Assisi, he's consistently advocated for the poor and marginalized. Not everyone agrees with his critiques of capitalism, but his focus on the human cost of economic systems is hard to ignore. Family life and marriage have also been focal points for Pope Francis. Through synods and documents like Amoris Laetitia, he's addressed the challenges families face today. His approach emphasizes understanding and support, especially for those in complex situations. Traditionalists may balk at his openness, but his focus on pastoral care reflects his commitment to meeting people where they are. Indigenous rights are another area where Pope Francis has taken a stand. He's spoken out against the exploitation of indigenous peoples and their lands, emphasizing their right to dignity and protection. The 2019 Pan-Amazon Synod underscored his concern for these communities and the environment. Critics may call it political, but his advocacy aligns with his broader message of care for the vulnerable. His leadership style is rooted in humility. By washing the feet of prisoners, including non-Christians and women, during Holy Thursday ceremonies, he's shown a hands-on approach to service. These acts may seem simple, but they carry a powerful message about what leadership should look like. Pope Francis has also worked to elevate the role of women in the Church. While he hasn't altered doctrines on ordination, he's appointed women to significant Vatican roles and commissioned studies on women deacons. These steps may not satisfy everyone, but they signal a willingness to recognize women's contributions to the Church. The COVID-19 pandemic brought new challenges, and Pope Francis rose to the occasion. His solitary Urbi et Orbi blessing in an empty St. Peter's Square became an iconic image of hope during a dark time. He reminded the world of the importance of solidarity and faith in the face of adversity. Pope Francis hasn't shied away from addressing the digital age either. He's spoken about the potential of social media to foster dialogue, but has also warned against its dangers, like misinformation and hostility. His balanced approach highlights the need for responsibility in the online world. In Fratelli Tutti, released in 2020, he called for universal fraternity and an end to divisions. Drawing inspiration from St. Francis of Assisi, he tackled issues like racism and inequality, urging the world to come together. While some found his ideas too idealistic, others saw them as a necessary call to action. Pope Francis has also made youth a priority. Through World Youth Days and the document Christus Vivit, he's encouraged young people to take an active role in shaping the Church and society. His message is clear: the future belongs to them, and they have the power to make a difference. Lastly, his relentless calls for peace in conflict zones like Syria, South Sudan, and Ukraine show his commitment to nonviolence. While his pleas may not always yield immediate results, they reflect a consistent effort to promote dialogue and reconciliation. Pope Francis's papacy has been far from traditional, but it's clear he's not afraid to challenge norms and push for a more inclusive and compassionate world. Was the Pope's reaction a simple moment of frustration, or does it reveal something deeper about the pressures he faces? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.